Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at another one of the updates from the Season 21 balance patch for Pokemon Go Battle League, and that is the adjustment to Ice Fang on Arctibax. Now, Ice Fang did get a rework. It's still doing the same damage, but its energy generation was improved. So now it is an Ice-type clone of the move Counter. Now this allows Arctibax to compete in a new way. Dragon Breath of course is still a great fast move, but with Ice Fang having the same damage per turn and energy per turn, you can now use Arctibax in a very different way. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Ice Fang Arctibax in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a pretty decent lead leading into Ariados. I am running Dragon Claw and Icy Wind. Arctibax can also learn Avalanche, but I figured I would want to try and debuff things. I'm going to fire off the Icy Wind, opponent is going to let that through, and Arctibax is going to get the nice farm down to exit with some energy, although the energy will be 2 stages debuffed. Opponent aggressively switches into Diggersby, I overfarm and play to the CMP tie. Even though my energy is at -2, Icy Wind still does some pretty solid damage, and now I'm more than happy just to let the Arctibax go. Fire Punch barely does not KO, I'm able to save the Arctibax on 1 HP and bring in Shadow Drapion. Drapion will go for the Aqua Tail, but I haven't yet done enough damage to the Diggersby where Aqua Tail will be lethal. Opponent is going to let that go. They have no reason to bait here, they can go straight for the Scorching Sands, and I'm going to look to massively overfarm with the Drapion, firing off the Aqua Tail, putting pressure on their shield. But the opponent says no, they're just going to let that go. In the back is Feraligatr, and Feraligatr with 2 shields is very scary. So I farm up quite a bit, wait the turn, bait with the Aqua Tail, opponent is going to switch into Ariados, trying for the catch. They have a move, so now it's my turn to go for the catch, catching on the 1 HP Arctibax, and now we are just in a completely one position. I have so much energy on the Drapion, going for the Crunch. Crunch is going to be no-shielded, and now I fire off the Aqua Tail. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm not quite going to be able to get this farm down. The opponent is going to make a move, so unfortunately I will have to show my third. But overall, the team off to a pretty solid start, as 1 Volt Switch from Charjabug means game over. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Arctibax versus Morpeko. Opponent is going to save switch into a Shadow Air/Skarmory, and I get to respond with Charjabug. Now, Air/Skarmory is something that I did look at for Show 6 teams earlier on in the previous season. Just because even though Sky Attack has been nerfed into the ground, Skarmory still has an insane amount of defensive resistances, and some teams were just really not respecting that fact. Charjabug is going to get a full farm down of that Skarmory. In the back is Sand Attack Gliscor, and oh my goodness, Arctibax is about to go off. X-Scissor is going to connect. There's the switch to the Arctibax. Opponent is going to send out Morpeko. Morpeko is going to be firing off an Aura Wheel here or a Psychic Fangs, but either way, I can survive it. It is going to be the Aura Wheel Electric, which I do survive since it is resisted, and now they switch to the Hangry form, and I can lower their attack right back to normal with the Icy Wind. Opponent is going to be now firing off another move. I will commit the shield. It is going to be the Aura Wheel, and I'm going to get a full farm down here, and I leave with the Icy Wind loaded, and this poor Gliscor is about to get absolutely shredded. Icy Wind, 1-hit KO onto the Gliscor, and that's a good game. We see a terrible lead in the next match, Arctibax versus Fortress. I save switch to Shadow Drapion, and they're staying in with the Fortress. This is pretty decent for me. I would definitely rather see it here. Crunch is shielded, and I get a debuff. This tells me that they're going to Rock Tomb, so I'm instantly going to no shield. I can very comfortably tank a Rock Tomb, but they go for the Earthquake. The opponent shielded like they were going to go for the debuff, but they actually end up tricking me there a little bit. In comes the Charjabug, and honestly, Fortress is a terrible Pokemon for this team to see. But it can't 1v3, and I'm relying on that fact. I'm able to land the Discharge. That does some pretty nice damage. Unfortunately, the Rock Tomb is going to debuff me, meaning that I can't farm down. So what I'm going to do is bank some energy, look to snipe with Arctibax, but it's a simultaneous switch out, Arctibax into Goodra. The Battle of Dragons. Ice Fangs adding up quite a bit. They are going to shield up the Dragon Claw, firing off a move, and I know that this is only going to be resisted, so I'm going to let this go. The Aqua Tail is going to connect. They do get the farm down, but I was able to do so much damage. Here, I think I'm going to need energy if I'm going to have a chance to win this game. So I'm going to let this go and just go for a full farm down, hoping that whatever they have in back is going to be weak to this loaded energy. In the back is Azu. Wait, no, I saw Water Fairy. I thought it was Azu, but it's a Waterfall Primarina of all things. And that I can KO with double discharge. So I get to fire off the second discharge. Now they need to survive 2 Volt Switches on the Fortress, but they do not, so a very tricky lead, but we're able to emerge victorious. Speaking of tough leads, leading into a Dunsparce, I save switch into the Shadow Drapion, and the opponent does not stay in, which is what I was hoping. Instead, they bring out Annihilate. So the opponent just has Arctibax counters all over the place, which is very unfortunate. They're going to be firing off energy. It's the close combat I tried to call a bait, but it was not to be. Charjabug is going to get a big farm down due to the fact that they debuffed their defense to land that close combat, and now I exit with quite a lot of energy. Opponent sends in the Dunsparce. I do have an energy advantage, but this is going to be a tough battle. The fact that they're bringing in the Dunsparce here tells me that they are weak in the back to Charjabug. I am going to be committing the shield. As Rock Slide, it wouldn't KO, but it would definitely add up. Farming up a ton. Now I'm at the back-to-back X-Scissors, and let's start putting some pressure on my opponent. I don't really want to overfarm here, because if I do, then I'm going to have to give up a shield. So I'm just going to throw on alignment, giving them a free rollout. The X-Scissor is going to be shielded. The switch to Arctibax, and I know that Arctibax can tank this pretty comfortably, so I'm going to let this go. It is going to be the Rock Slide. In the back is for Alligator. I'm farming up. They throw the Hydro Cannon, and I see a win con. I am just going to let this go and instead just farm with the Charjabug. Opponent, they see a win con as well. They're trying to farm me down. I build up to the back-to-back X-Scissors, and this game all comes down to this. Does X-Scissor KO the Dunsparce? It's going to be very, very close. X-Scissor into the Dunsparce. The Dunsparce takes it on very low HP. We made it close, but it was not to be. Moving to the next match, leading into a Rollout Bibarel. Rollout Bibarel, another Pokemon that's a little awkward, but overall the back 2 Pokemon are fine into it. I actually get a defense drop, which is very nice. They're farming up a ton of energy, and in doing so, they're actually letting me force the first shield of the match. So the Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. They're at back-to-back Surfs. I decide to respect the potential. Oh my goodness, I was going to say Hyper Fang. That's a Hyper Beam. Oh my word, that would have absolutely one-shot. I'm so happy I shielded that. In comes for Alligator, and for Alligator gets rocked with a crunch. They're going to pick up the knockout in retaliation with the Hydro Cannon, but I think this is for Ice Fang range, and it is. Arctibax gets a big farm down. Opponent in the back, they have Goodra, and Goodra, I mean, these fast moves are adding up quite a bit. Goodra is going to be firing off the Aqua Tail to force the shield. I have to watch for a switch in here. There's the switch in. I'm able to save the back-to-back Dragon Claws on Arctibax, and from here, this is just a completely one game. Opponent actually does play to the CMP tie here, but realistically, they do not have a path forward in this game, as I have the back-to-back moves loaded on the Arctibax. X's are fired by the Charjabug, and the opponent thankfully decides to save his bolt time and just let that go since they knew it was over. We move to the next match, leading Arctibax into Shadow Gallade. Shadow Gallade, of course, with its lightning fast pacing, will outpace and make a close combat, so that's going to grab an immediate shield from me. Opponent is going to bait with the Leaf Blade. They switch out into Malamar. I'm going to look to farm up a ton of energy with the Arctibax. Opponent throws instantly, and this means they're switch locked and their attack and defense are debuffed. That's honestly great for me. Now I can start firing off these Dragon Claws, and the opponent is in a very, very tricky position. I'm firing off Dragon Claw number 2 after overfarming with the Arctibax. Dragon Claw does not KO, but the Ice Fang after does, and they lose the entire Malamar. In the back is a Alolan Sandslash, and that is a bit of a tricky Pokemon for this team to deal with, but with teamwork, it is doable. That does end up being a CMP tie. Dragon Claw, of course, not going to do a whole lot of damage, but the important thing is just get some chip. And now it's in a range where I can threaten a KO with a Crunch. The nice thing for me is that Charjabug is going to be a wall to the charge attacks from Gallade. So Crunch is going to grab the shield, now I can switch over to the Charjabug, and I should be in a pretty decent position. The opponent can try and go for a switch out into Gallade, but I will be able to overfarm there. They don't, so I get to just fire off the discharge and pick up the knockout. Gallade should have one residual Psycho Cut since they did go for a bait earlier. They fire off what can only be a Leaf Blade. My lose con is that this plus 2 Psycho Cuts KO, but I have a very high rank Charjabug, so I'm able to withstand the Leaf Blade and the 2 Psycho Cuts, make the X-Scissor, and that game did get pretty close in the end, but we are able to take it. We've got a battle of dragons in the next match, Arctibax versus Guzzlord. Now this is a trouble Pokemon for our Drapion at the back, so seeing it on the lead, honestly, we are pretty thrilled. They're going to strike first, going for a crunch, fishing for a debuff there. Honestly, not a bad play by any means, because a debuff would allow them an easier farm down. They're just going to fully sacrifice it and bring in for Alligator. I end up pivoting out into, oh no, into the Drapion, but there's a Gastrodon in the back. Now, this team is pretty soft to ground. The goal is that Arctibax can usually deal with the ground types, but the bad thing for me here is my Arctibax is very, very low. They're going to land the Body Slam. I send in the Arctibax. I think I may have actually been able to get to the Icy Wind. I'll have to see if I did end up surviving there, and I did, so I could have got the Icy Wind there, but unfortunately, that's just entirely my fault that I didn't, because I was just worried that Mud Slap would KO, but it didn't. They're going to land the Earth Power. At this point, my only hope is to try and go for a farm down and leave with 2 discharges and hope that a discharge KOs. For Alligator's Glassy, and discharge hits for super effective, but in my heart of hearts, I know it's not going to be enough to one-shot, and I'm in 1 Shadow Claw range as well, so I don't even get to land the discharge there. So I guess, hindsight being 2020, I should have definitely kept my Arctibax healthier. We move to the next match, leading into Shadow Drapion with the Arctibax. Drapion farms up to 8 and tries the CMP tie as I go for the Icy Wind. But instead, I'm just going to go for the extra Ice Fang, and now I'm going to click Icy Wind. Icy Wind should just about pick up the KO from here. Opponent is going to commit the shield. They're farming up quite a lot with the Drapion, and I'm very close to a move. They should be very close to an Aqua Tail here. Crunch is going to land. They make the Aqua Tail here, so I'm going to switch out and make a catch onto my Drapion. They will be switching out, so I will have to keep in mind they can potentially catch on the Drapion later. They bring Superior in. Oh no. So they are clearly core broken by opposing Drapions in the back if this is their best option. Oh my goodness. They let me get an Aqua Tail, so I'm going to fire off the Aqua Tail. This will come close to knocking out. They do end up giving up the final shield, and at this point, I should just be in a winning position. I have a move loaded on the Arctibax, and now I can just bring in the Charjabug. They throw instantly there, anticipating me bringing in the Arctibax and trying to CMP tie them, but they go for the Aerial Ace. That's not going to do a whole lot. They're going to make another move, but again, it's just not going to impact Charjabug too much here. So I will get that full farm down with 1 more Volt Switch. Opponent, what do they have in the back? They're going to have to try and catch at some point. In the back is Frostlass, and my opponent actually gets their fast move denied. That's not great, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait 2 turns so they are able to catch back up, and now I get to fire off another discharge. I would rather have the game play out fairly than benefit from lag, and now, at this point, I mean, there's just no way for them to win it, as they could throw a move, but I have a shield, and Drapion just can't get to another move, so that game is over. Oh, we got a Dream Lead, Arctibax and a Gliscor. Gliscor getting torn to shreds. There's a switch out to Bibarel. And I do have a pretty good response to this with the Charjabug, but I'm expecting this is a bait out. And in that case, I do really want to try and save that Charjabug for later. I'm going to be shielding up the Drapion. Bibarel goes for the return. Return probably would have KO'd. I'm going to farm up a ton of energy with Drapion and fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail into Bibarel. Barely does pick up the KO, and that is honestly terrific. Now that Gliscor did already take an Ice Fang before switching out, so that Gliscor has taken quite a bit of damage. I will fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to connect, getting them low the switch to the Arctibax, and I get the snipe, and in the back is Toxapex. So they were trying to bait out the Charjabug to let Toxapex sweep, but thankfully we were able to hold on to our energy, and now this is just a completely won game. Icy Wind does get a shield and a perma debuff applied for the remainder of this match since they have no switches remaining. They are going to get a full farm down, but they're debuffed and their energy is not going to go very far against Shadow Drapion. So I can send in the Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion is going to tank the first, shield the second, and I will be able to get to 2 crunches here. So it looks like I don't even have to show my third, which is quite nice. I'll fire off the crunch. At this point, my opponent's attempt at a win con is to try and call a bait, but there's just no reason to ever bait here, so I will get the Poison Sting farm down and take the win. Hopping into the final match, oh my goodness, leading at a Jumpluff. They're staying in! This used to be a pretty solid matchup for the Jumpluff, but again, this is another way that Arctibax can compete in a new way, is now you have a massive amount of fast move pressure of the ice type variety, so if you go up against something like a grass, suddenly that grass type is having a significantly worse day. Azumarill is going to land the Play Rough. That does quite a lot of damage. Farming up with this Charjabug and going for the Discharge. Discharge is going to be getting that Azumarill quite low. I'm not going to get a farm down, so I'm just going to go for the exit Scissor just to guarantee the knockout or grab their shield. They are going to let that through. In the back, they have a Shadow Claw Typhlosion. They make a nice catch on a Jump Bluff, and I'm just going to Zero Bubble this because the way I get back in this game is with a sick Drapion farm down. Oh my goodness, Drapion exits with so much energy. Back in comes the Typhlosion. Typhlosion, another buffed Pokemon. It has Thunder Punch, which now does extra damage. Opponent is firing off their energy, and I'm just going to call a bait here. Even if they do Blast Burn, it's fine, because I still have Arctibax, and Arctibax has a ton of loaded energy. Arctibax at the back-to-back Dragon Claws. Dragon Claw is going to be shielded, firing off Dragon Claw number 2, and this is just going to be too much for this Typhlosion to handle. Getting Typhlosion deep into the red, we switch into the Charjabug as they fire off their energy. Typhlosion did go for the Blast Burn there, and now we just get to Ice Fang down Typhlosion and take the win. All in all, I had an absolute blast getting to run Ice Fang Arctibax, even though it does have the exact same stats as Dragon Breath, so in theory it's not technically an improvement for it. It really allows Arctibax to compete in a more unique way. This is going to be nice in the Open Great League, specifically if you need extra Ice-type coverage on your team, but as well in limited metas, the ability to run equally good Dragon and Ice fast moves just allows this Pokemon to be way more of a Swiss Army knife. So overall, I really like the change. It adds a ton of flexibility to this Pokemon, and it's a change that involves you using fast TMs instead of charge TMs. I always have loads of fast TMs, but I almost never have charge TMs. So a Mon that actually uses fast TMs for a change is quite nice. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.